Have you ever wondered what happens when a society completely loses its moral and spiritual compass? In chapter 19 of the book of Judges, we find a shocking and brutal story that reveals the depths of human depravity and the absolute chaos that ensues in the absence of divine guidance. This chapter is a clear example of the devastating consequences of living without God's direction. Imagine a time when there was no king in Israel and everyone did what seemed right in their own eyes. A time of moral anarchy, where values were cast aside and darkness took over souls. Our story begins with a Levite who decides to fetch his companion, who had fled to her father's house in Bethlehem of Judah. This Levite, a man who should be an example of piety and service to God, starts the story in a morally fragile position because a concubine was essentially a woman living with him as a wife, but without the full rights of a legitimate wife. After a brief reconciliation, the couple sets off on the journey back home. The decision to fetch his companion already reveals an attempt to restore order in the relationship that had been broken, a symbol of hope amidst chaos. As night falls, they arrive at the city of Gibeah, in the land of Benjamin. However, what seemed to be a simple journey soon turns into an unimaginable nightmare. During this journey we see a reflection of the fragility of human relationships and the constant need for divine direction and protection. The Levite's decision to spend the night in Gibeah rather than continue to a safer location foreshadows the dark events to come. The journey is marked by uncertainty and vulnerability, a metaphor for the spiritual condition of the people of Israel at that time. When they arrive in Gibeah, they find the town square deserted, and no one offers them lodging. It was common practice at that time to welcome travelers, but this city seemed strangely hostile. Finally, an old man coming from the field saw them and, moved with compassion, offered them shelter in his house, showing a rare example of hospitality and humanity amid general indifference. During the night, wicked men surround the house and demand that the Levite be handed over to them. This demand reflects a perversity similar to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where the men of the city sought to violate Lot's guests. The old man, desperate to protect his guest, offers his own daughter and the Levite's companion to the attackers, an act that shows how deep the corruption had infiltrated society. Follow this horrific scene with me and try to imagine the hopelessness and despair that gripped everyone in that house. Following this scene is to realize the complete inversion of values that dominated Gibeah. The old man's act of offering his own daughter and the Levite's concubine to protect his guests seems incomprehensible to us today, but it illustrates how far from God's principles the people had become. This desperate decision underscores the lack of protection for the vulnerable, and the failure to uphold the values of hospitality and respect for life. The companion was handed over to the men, and the night that followed was one of the most tragic and brutal recorded in the scriptures. She was abused all night and left to die at the door of the old man's house at dawn. Finding his companion dead the next morning, the Levite, gripped by deep pain and uncontrollable rage, made a decision that would echo throughout Israel. He cut the companion's body into 12 parts and sent each part to the tribes of Israel, a shocking act that served as a cry for help to the nation, denouncing the gravity of sin and the urgent need for justice. When the tribes of Israel received the parts of the companion's body, the message was clear and shocking. The Levite explained in detail the terrible events that led to his companion's death, highlighting the atrocity committed by the men of Gibeah. This account provoked a wave of indignation and a clamor for justice among all the tribes. Imagine the visual and emotional impact of this act. The Israelites must have been horrified to receive parts of the dismembered body, a graphic reminder of the brutality and injustice that occurred. Each piece sent was a silent denunciation, an urgent call to the collective conscience of a nation that had strayed from God. Gathered in Mizpah, the tribe sought to understand the depth of the crime and decided to act against the tribe of Benjamin, which harbored the culprits. Faced with the seriousness of the situation, the tribes of Israel united to confront the tribe of Benjamin, which harbored the men responsible for the atrocities in Gibeah. The tribes sent messengers demanding that the culprits be handed over for punishment. but the Benjamites refused, opting to protect the criminals. This refusal not only showed solidarity among the Benjamites, but also the extent of corruption and lack of justice within the tribe. It was a choice of blind loyalty, sacrificing truth and justice for a false sense of unity. This refusal led to a civil war in Israel. The tribes of Israel prepared for battle, determined to purge the evil from their nation. The confrontation was intense and brutal, with heavy casualties on both sides. Unity and justice were at stake, and the Israelites fought not just for revenge, but to restore morality and order in their land. After several battles, the forces of Israel finally managed to defeat the Benjamites, almost annihilating the entire tribe. This devastating conflict served as a grim lesson about the consequences of disobedience and the lack of justice. The victory, though necessary, came at a high cost, emphasizing the importance of maintaining justice and morality in a nation. The smoldering ruins and fields covered with bodies reminded everyone of the price of delayed justice. The near-complete devastation of the tribe of Benjamin also brought a new set of challenges for the nation of Israel, including the need to ensure the surviving tribe's survival without compromising the principles of justice. The pain of loss and the post-battle desolation left deep marks on Israel. The Israelites, contemplating the near extinction of one of their own tribes, were forced to reflect on the gravity of their actions and the need for more balanced and merciful justice. This tragic event became an eternal reminder of the importance of confronting injustice and sin wherever they are found. The story of Judges 19 serves as a powerful mirror of the human condition and the importance of divine justice. It shows us that without God, humanity can fall into deep depravity, losing morality and compassion. The companion's tragedy is a call to spiritual vigilance, reminding us that justice must be sought and maintained at all costs. The united response of the tribes of Israel against the injustice in Gibeah teaches us that collective action in pursuit of righteousness can bring restoration. Even in times of darkness, the light of justice and morality can prevail when God's people unite in its defense. This story is a warning and a call to action for all of us, highlighting the importance of following divine principles in our daily lives. To illustrate how the story of Judges 19 resonates today, let's think about recent cases of social injustice and corrupted morality, such as the refugee crisis, racial inequality, and political corruption. These are contemporary examples that challenge us to act with justice and compassion. Responding to these issues requires not only individual actions but also a collective effort, reflecting the unity of the tribes of Israel in the pursuit of justice. As we reflect on this narrative, we are called to consider our own conduct and that of our society. Are we living according to divine principles, or are we straying from God's ways? The story of Judges 19 is a mirror that invites us to examine our lives, seek justice, and live with integrity. Judges 19 is one of the darkest stories in the scriptures, serving as a warning about the consequences of living without divine guidance. It shows us the importance of justice, compassion, and unity in times of crisis. Reflecting on this narrative helps us understand the need to remain firm in God's principles to avoid falling into moral darkness.